We know that everything in the universe is made up of the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, and space. But this also applies to you, to your body, to your mind, and to your energy, as elements not only express through the physical, but through all aspects of our being. And with each individual having a unique combination of these elements and their archetypes. While the goal is to balance all the elements, each individual is born with more dominant elements that act like base stats of your avatar, as this acts as the archetype one plays through this lifetime. First, let us understand what I mean by archetypes. Archetypes are universal patterns of energy, timeless roles that show up in myth, psychology, and spirituality. You can think of them as patterns of the matrix of life, or symbolic characteristics of the human experience, with some examples of archetypes being the tarot, the hero's journey, astrology, mythology, and other stories. Another good way to understand archetypes is to think of them as the mathematical constants of the universe. Just like how we have pi or the Fibonacci sequence, patterns that show up everywhere in nature, from the spiral of the galaxies to the shape of seashells. Archetypes are the energetic constants of the human experience. Most people do not understand archetypes because of its subtle nature. And from the outside perception, it looks like a loose and vague description that can apply to anyone. But with direct experience and the ability to connect the patterns of life, one will see that these subtle descriptions are very real, as they are the living patterns moving through everything. When it comes to the archetypes of the elements, we have multiple ways of figuring out your dominant energy, or in other words, the elemental archetype of your experience. The easiest way to find out is through astrology. Knowing the exact location and time you were born gives you the base stats of your human avatar, the elemental blueprint you came in with. With the 3 most significant aspects to look at are your sun sign, moon sign, and rising sign. The sun sign shows your core energy, how your light shines into the world. The moon sign reveals your inner emotional world and intuitive self. And the rising sign is how your energy presents to others, the first impression, the mask, and the role you step into. So, you can think of the sun sign as primary, moon secondary, and the rising sign as a third influence. Now, you don't have to figure all of this out manually. There are many applications and websites that make it easy to find out your sun, moon, and rising sign. With one popular example is The Pattern, along with other free astrology chart calculators. All you need is your date, time, and place of birth, and you will see exactly how the elements are distributed in your chart. As we can see through the 12 zodiac symbols, they are split in between the 4 elements of earth, water, fire, and air, with the fire signs of Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, earth signs of Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn, air signs of Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius, and water signs of Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. Now, another way to discover your dominant element is through chi sensing and the intuition. Becoming sensitive to the energetics of the body, one can be able to sense the life force and the patterns within. Whether it be through meditation practices, inner guides, or intuition, using the 6th sense, one can learn dominant elements being expressed through the avatar. This goes along with memories, especially childhood memories, as the child is gaining the imprints of life like a sponge with the filter of the elements. So, it can be easy to connect the dots of the archetypes through those memories. Before we go into understanding the archetypes of the elements and what it means, there's one other aspect of elemental archetypes. Through the lunar cycle calendars, there are the 5 elements of the Wu Jing that are being expressed: the earth, wood, water, fire, and metal. And so through the lunar zodiac system, there's another elemental archetype one can look at, with each element going on for 2 consecutive years of yin and yang, and in conjunction with the 12 animals makes a 60-year cycle. Now that we know what archetypes are and how to discover your elements, let's talk about what the elemental archetypes really mean and how this can be a useful tool. Each element doesn't just shape personality traits, it expresses itself through every layer of your being: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And together, They form the blueprint of your soul's journey, the avatar you play in this lifetime. And so, they are not just abstract ideas, but they influence every layer of our human experience. On the physical level, the elements shape the way energy flows through the body, our vitality, our health, our senses. On the emotional level, they guide the way we feel and process life. On the mental level, they influence how we think, communicate, and create. And on the spiritual level, they show us the lessons and initiations we are here to walk through. You can say the elemental archetype is like the role your avatar plays in this lifetime. It is the energetic pattern that sets the stage for your journey. What comes naturally to you, what challenges you'll face, and ultimately, how you'll grow. Now, while one element may be dominant for you, the goal is never to get stuck there. The deeper path is to integrate all the elements, to master balance, so you can experience life as a complete being. As the true avatar, the embodied being is the master of all the elements. While I won't go in depth into each element here, since I already made full videos exploring them individually, I do want to share some examples from my own experience. This way, you can get a clearer sense of how elemental archetypes actually play out in real life, and how they shape the journey of the human avatar. Because it's one thing to hear the theory, but it's another to actually see how these elemental patterns move through a person's physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual life. My dominant elements are fire and water, with my sun sign of Aries being a fire sign, and my moon and rising both in Cancer as water signs. The fire element shows up in me through my passion, drive, and creativity, but especially before my spiritual journey, this energy also carried a big shadow and a learning lesson. I often struggled with burnout, getting overheated, and dealing with anger and intense emotions. Even my body reflected it, like challenges with digestion, which is ruled by digestive fire, and even my colorblindness, since fire is connected with the sense of sight. But like all archetypes, this energy is both the challenge and the gift. My fire is also my strength. It gives me the ability to burn through illusions quickly, to take bold action, and to tap into creativity. On a spiritual level, fire connects with clairvoyance and vision, the ability to see not just the physical eyes, but the inner sight. That's why fire has always been a central part of my path, both as a teacher and as a mirror. Alongside my fire element, I have a strong water element. Water shows up through intuition and empathy, and just like my fire element, it has been both my strength and my teacher. With my element before my awakening, before my balancing, I dealt with deep emotional issues, with intense depressions and overwhelming emotions, and an over-absorption of energies of people around me. With physically being expressed through the sense of taste, as I had intense stomach and digestive issues. And yet it's also one of my greatest strengths, especially the more you embody or balance your elements, as my water element has given me the ability to be a clear mirror for people's consciousness, while allowing my energy to remain authentic, peaceful, and empathetic, and allowing to be relaxed in the flow of life, such as the go-with-the-flow type of personality. And so before my spiritual awakening, which can be understood as a certain mastery and balance of the 5 elements, it was mainly a dance between the fire and water elements, learning not to burn too hot and not to drown too deep, but to let the two work together. And while even when balanced, this does not mean the dance stops, but it flows with an equal giving and receiving, as you master when one needs to become more active or dominant. Another key note from my experience is that the mixture of fire and water element is directly associated with the energy of Qi or Tejas of the Middle Dantian and the Pitta dosha of Ayurveda. My Middle Dantian association shows itself greatly in my ability of Qi understanding, as this energy center is connected to the flow of Qi that flows throughout the whole body and into the hands and feet, which has always been extra sensitive in my experience. In the dosha science of Ayurveda, Pitta dosha governs digestion, metabolism, and transformation, both physical and mental, with qualities of hot, sharp, oily, intense, or focused and driven. With balanced Pitta, you have strong digestion, clarity, courage, and natural leadership. And with imbalanced Pitta, You have anger, inflammation, burnout, ulcers, and overcriticism, which all of these have been very important lessons and qualities of my journey, as this is a pretty good summary of what I had to go through. While my dominant elements are fire and water, this doesn't mean I don't carry qualities of air and earth as well. All of us do, and they have both played important roles in my experience. But it's the dominant elements that usually shape the bigger shadows and lessons we're here to face. That's why I emphasize fire and water in my own journey. At the same time, I do specific yogic practices to help balance out my air and earth element, because ultimately the path is about bringing all the elements into harmony. I'll give a quick example of what earth and air can mean. Earth gives us grounding, stability, and structure, but its lesson is not to become rigid, but to learn to let go. Air gives us thinking, communication, and higher perception, but its lesson is to not get lost in the mind and to stay rooted in the body. What I've shared here is just a glimpse of how the element archetypes play out in real life. You can also check out my course, Mastering the Elements, if you want to learn more. Now, when it comes to the lunar cycles of the Wu Jing, this works very similarly through the science of traditional Chinese medicine. Let's use my own avatar as an example. I was born in the year of the metal dragon. So, in addition to my fire and water dominance of Western astrology, I also carry the archetype of metal. My metal energy shows up in my life as clarity, refinement, and the ability to cut through illusions like a sword. It's the energy of structure, discipline, and precision. But just like with fire and water, metal also carries its shadows, rigidity, judgment, and sometimes holding things too tightly instead of letting things flow. And so through my experience, I've been a very disciplined person with a clarity to see through illusions. From the years of sports and working out discipline before my awakening, to my health conscious and meditation discipline post-awakening, as well as my ability to cut through illusions and be a mirror. But it's also been a great teacher, for my shadows as rigid thinking and judgment have been some of the greatest teachers I had to learn, as well as the physical attributes associated with metals such as lungs and skin, as I've struggled with issues of these two aspects of my being more than other physical aspects. So like all elements, metal has been both a strength and a shadow on my path, a force that shaped my avatar's journey. So, as you can see, the elemental archetypes show up in many ways, through Western astrology with the sun, moon, and rising sign, or through direct experience of qi sensing, and through the Wu Jing cycles of traditional Chinese medicine. Your elements are like the base stats of your avatar in the game of this lifetime. They reveal your natural strengths, your shadows, and the lessons you came here to learn. But they're not meant to put you in a box. They're a map, a mirror, helping you see yourself more clearly, as you are all the elements, and when balanced, you see your true nature of the space that holds all things together. If you want to learn more about the elements and how to balance them, I created a course called Mastering the Elements, designed to give you the tools and guidelines needed to master your own energy. Through yoga, qigong, holistic practices, and more. Link will be in the description. That's it for today's video. Like, subscribe, leave any comments or questions or topics that you want me to talk about. Thanks for watching. Peace.